Hello my dear fellow developers. Today we will implement a new endpoint in our API. This endpoint will allow us to update data for our photos. For example, we can remove or add new label to the photo or change its name. For all these actions, we will have just only one endpoint that will accept the whole bunch of fields. So let's open our backend server and create a new function in our functions directory. It's gonna be update photo. And we can just copy stuff from our save photo there and just copy this as well and rename it. Date photo. So for now, let's just send a very simple response item and empty object, let's say. To be able to access it from our front end, we need to add it to the serverless file, here where we have the list of our functions. Again, we just copy save photo, and the path will be, let's do it, update, and here it's gonna be update photo. And now we can try to test it in Postman if everything is fine. And yes, here save photo, we also have to rename to update. And let's go to our Postman, and here we're gonna add /update, and it's gonna be post request later. Yeah, duplicated key, we fixed it. And we're getting our response. Our function is live. Now we just need to write the actual logic for it. So here, as before, we're gonna get our updated data from event here. So let's say we want to know an ID of the picture and then everything else what we have, all updated data. And we're gonna parse it. We're gonna parse it from our event. And let's console log our stuff. So here we have to decide how we're gonna send our data. Before we sent a file, and it was form data. We could continue and send something like that. But let's try to do it different way. Let's try just to send JSON data. Let's say we're going to have our ID. And we're going to have our labels. That are an array, and these are our tags, our labels, and let's try to send it. And you can see this is what our console log prints. We have our data, and we have our ID. Everything is all right, looks all right. And now next thing that we're gonna do is to send a query to our data, to send a command to our database to update the data that we are getting from our client or Postman. And let's open the documentation for DynamoDB. I just want to do it this way. Okay, sample of update code here. Yeah, that's the right thing, that's the right documentation, I think. You can see here what we have to do. We have to create these parameters object and pass it to DynamoDB client update method. So this looks a bit scary, but it's just an example, and in our case it's gonna be a little bit more obvious, I think. We don't need condition expression, we want only update without any conditions. So let's copy it over first and let's try to change it just like we have our labels. And we need our photos table here as a table name. And our key, it's gonna be our primary key. And it's gonna be equal and our ID. And now the interesting stuff happens. This we don't need. And here we're gonna say labels. That's our column in database, and here we're just gonna pass an actual value. So if it's labels, it's just gonna be data labels. I don't know, wait, this is for data attribute values, I'm sorry. So it's gonna be here, and here we can just pass our name of the column, so it's gonna be labels, hard-coded for now. And then with these params, we are going to call our update. Let's put it here. Then DynamoDB update params. And we need to add a wait, don't forget about that, because before we send the request we have to wait for the comment to finish. And yeah, here in update expression we also have to change these to labels. And one second, yeah, expression attribute values have semicolon, so our labels with hash will equal our labels with semicolon. So you see, we define the name of the column here, the value of the column here, and then in this update expression we tell what we want to do. And that might be confusing, but it is what it is. So now we can try to test it. Let's open our database in AWS console. And let's go to our DynamoDB. Explore items, backend photos. So let's pick this one. And let's copy the primary key. And let's try to run our thing. Damn it, sharp. And we tried to run it. It did not show any errors here. So let's refresh and see if it updated labels for real. Yes, it worked. You see our labels now changed to these absolutely nonsense things, and if we update our front end we see them here. So that's pretty straightforward. And what else we want to do? We want to change the name of the picture. This is gonna be a little bit more difficult because this name, it's not just a name in the database, it is also a name of the file in S3 bucket. So we basically, if we want to rename it, we need to rename both of them or we have to create a new column in database and to keep the original file name to get the URL. But for consistency, I prefer them to be the same, and if we rename it here, we will also have to rename a file in S3 bucket. So now I'm gonna show how we will do that. So what's special about renaming S3 files? We don't really have a command to rename or to move it. We only can copy the old file with different name and remove the initial file. For this we need to know both name, like old name, and new name. So the name will be just the old name, and new name obviously will be the new name. So now here we are going to do the following. We're gonna make a condition. So if we have a new name, then here is gonna be the logic for S3 rename file. And if we don't have, then we just are doing the normal stuff, just passing the data to our database. And if you remember, we have two buckets, thumbnail and original bucket with original file, and we will need to rename in both of them. So let's create a function helper rename file in bucket, and this function will accept the old name first, new name. Yeah, I just need to do this, and it also will accept the bucket name. And what it's gonna do? We are gonna create parameters as always with the resource name, our bucket name, then copy source. That's gonna be the path for our old file. So it's gonna be bucket name plus slash, or even better to do it in template string like that, bucket name slash old name. So that's our old file that we are copying to the new name in the same bucket. So the key is gonna be new name. And this is our parameters for copying file. And copying is straightforward. We just call S3 copy object and pass the parameters. And our function should be asynchronous. And after we successfully copied our file, we can just delete it. S3 deleteObject. And here we're passing again bucket name and the key, our old name, and we delete it. And again we need to have this promise here. So that's our function, and we're gonna call it here rename file in bucket, and it has to be asynchronous, await. So we're waiting for name, old name. Was it first old name or last name? New name. Okay, first was old name. Okay, so name, new name, and original bucket name. So we are copying over the original file, and then we do the same for the template or thumbnail bucket. So that's it. So let's try with the same picture to add a name. We will just copy the old name here. And our new name is gonna be parrot head JPEG. And let's send it and ignore this. And as you see, we are not getting any errors. And if we refresh our item, okay, we renamed it in S3, but I forgot to rename it in the database. Okay, so it was cached. Everything worked, except the fact that we have to update our name as well. We can just add it here. For example, here, I'm gonna add name, new name. And here, name, name. And here, I think it's gonna work just if we do it like that. Just instead the labels, we're gonna get name. Now I'm going to change our parrot head name to something else, and we do not get errors. So let's go to the bucket, let's check parrot head 1, 2, 3. Do we have a new name here? Yes, and we can access our picture again. But I see here some potential for refactoring. You see, we are adding here, every time we want to add another field in our database, we add it manually. But what if we just will get them from data, and then we will just loop through all the properties in data and add them here, instead of adding manually every time when we need to add something, to update something. So let's do this. Let's create a little helper function for that. Let's quickly refactor our update expression. We will create a helper function here. Let's call it create update expression. And it's gonna accept our data as a parameter. And then let's take a look what we have to generate. First, we have to generate this update expression. So from our object data, we're gonna get keys, and then we can just map through them. And with every key, we would return a string. And string is just gonna be this one. Just we get rid of set and of second one, and here instead of the label, instead of hard-coded one, we just pass key, and this is not the end, this is actually just a part of it. We're gonna join it like that, and here we will add our set. So if we print it in console log, and then return it. So if we print it in console log, and let's call it somewhere here, for example, we can see what string we generate, if it's correct or not. Okay, I messed up a bit here, so this should work now. And you see we are getting our update expression with labels, and if we add some other parameters, some other property here, I think we also should get it in our expression. Where is it? Yeah, here. You see we are getting labels and test. We are not getting the name because we destructure it above here and do some stuff. So if we want to get a name as well in our expression, we have to add it to the data back, but we will do it in a minute. So that's our update expression. We also need to add to our function this expression attribute values and expression attribute names. So let's add them. So expression attribute names is gonna be almost the same as our update expression. It's also gonna be object keys data. Let's not do more typos, please. And then we're not gonna map it, we're gonna reduce it. And you remember we pass to reduce two arguments, one function and another accumulator. And then here we have our accumulator and our key. And what we have to do is just to return an object where we have everything from our accumulator, and we also have to add our key with a hash, you remember, just like this, and then it's gonna be the actual key, and it will be equal again the string with the just gonna be equal the key. And we may delete this one, and then let's create our values. And again, this time it's gonna be not just object key, it's gonna be object values of our data, and again reduce, and again our function, our accumulator, and we're gonna have accumulator here, and here we have key value as an array, and we're gonna return string key, and it is gonna be equal value. Delete this hard code, and now we can console log all three of them just to see if it is what we need. Let's test, and let's scroll to our console log, and it looks the same as here, I think. Looks fine, and so we basically just return it here, and then here let's move it a bit closer to here. We are creating our update expression and just put it here instead of the hard code. I messed up something in values. So object values, data, reduce key value, not values, entries. Yes, of course. Yeah. Now should work. Just check. What is the name of our parrot head for now? 6666. Amazing. And now we just rename it to the parrot head without any digits, and it is succeeded. It is renamed, I hope. Yep, it is renamed. And what about our item? It is still parrot head 1, 2, 3. So what we're gonna do now is here where we pass the data, if we have the name, we want to add to our data name. Gonna be equal new name. And here parrot head new name. No errors. Checking S3 bucket. All good. And checking our item. All good as well. Checking our front end. Perfect. So our backend is working, and now let's connect it to our client to be able to edit the name and labels from browser, not from the API and Postman. So that's what we're gonna do in the next video. I hope it was useful for you, and if you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in comments below the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.